One of the things I love about Kia's electric cars is this. Their naming is so incredibly simple. EV5, EV6, EV9. This is the new EV5. These images were just released within the past 24 hours. This is exactly what it's going to look like. This is what we know about it. And it's an interesting competitor to the Tesla Model Y. Should you get one of these? Should you wait for one of these? How will this actually compare to the Tesla Model Y when it comes out in its new upgraded form within the next 6 months? Because the new Model Y will compete against this new EV5, and it's going to be an interesting face-off. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. I'm the Electric Viking. Welcome to the new subscribers. Welcome back, everyone else. Kia EV9 there's not really much available in that space, right? It's a 7-row electric SUV, about the size of a Toyota Land Cruiser. Doesn't really have any rivals right now. Very, very few. However, the EV5, well, different story. Very, very different story. It has a lot of rivals. It's going to be tough. Kia's going to have to really, really price this car competitively. Otherwise, it won't sell. They know it. So what will the price actually be? Well, we don't know the price, unfortunately, yet. But we do know some other things about it. One, we know that it's a similar size to a Kia Sorento and that it looks like this. And I've got to say, I think it looks futuristic. It looks like a good combination between the design of, some cars which look a bit too EV-ish and some cars which look like they're trying to be pretend gasoline-powered cars and they have fake grills on the front. I think this is a pretty good mix between the two of those. I quite like the style. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Is this a hit or a miss when it comes to the look? Now, how do we know? How do we know what this looks like? Well, these images actually mostly come from the Chinese government, which they release this information when they have cars that are coming to the Chinese car market. In other words, this car will be for sale in China within probably a month or two. Will they be exporting them from China where they're building these EV5s? Very likely. Would the Korean government be happy about that? Absolutely not. But this is what's happening. This is the future of the electric car industry. Make cars in China, then ship them around the world. So clearly that's what Kia plans on doing here. The new EV5 electric SUV's production-ready design and specs were revealed earlier than expected because of the Chinese government, who have to release this information. Well, not have to, but they decide to do this all the time with new cars. Kia's designers weren't joking when they claimed that the EV5 concept unveiled in March 2023 closely resembled the production vehicle because they look pretty much the same. So you might have been thinking, oh, hey, hang on a minute, I've already seen this. That's because the concept and the real thing look really similar, which I think is a good move. Now, one of the things that I personally not such a fan of, you can see in the images, it's got 21-inch wheels. If you get a car, an EV with 21-inch wheels, your range will be 10 to 15% less than, say, a car with 18-inch wheels. So, yeah, they look good, but they're not really all that practical. However, you can see this EV, you can see it looks a lot like the EV9. It's like a scaled down, smaller version of the EV9. And one thing I really like about it is the fact it looks like a traditional boxy kind of SUV. The coupe style, it's not for everyone. It's not quite as practical. You can't fit quite as much in there. But having that square boot space at the back, I think it should have some pretty good space inside this car. So if you're after something a bit more practical, if you've got a family, you want to store stuff to go away, this could be a really good option. That said, though, it's not actually all that big. It's a fair bit shorter than a Tesla Model Y. So interior space, we don't really know yet. I mean, it does look like a decent size, but considering it's only 4,615 millimeters long, it's only 4.6 meters long. And that means 181.7 inches long. The width is 1,875 millimeters, meaning it's 73.8 inches wide. And the height, now this is the really only advantage it has, say, in terms of dimensions over the Model Y. The height is 1,715 millimeters, which is 67.5 inches. Wheelbase, 2,750 millimeters, which is 108.3 inches. That means it competes against its own brother, the Kia EV6. Dimensions of this car versus the EV6, it's actually very similar dimensions. It's just a different shape. Obviously, the EV6 more like a wagon, a van, an estate, whatever you want to call it, and this is more like a traditional box-styled SUV. But the actual technical dimensions in terms of the length, very similar. What's the architecture of this vehicle? It's built on Kia and Hyundai's EGMP architecture, which is quite good. It uses McPherson front struts and multi-link rear suspension, which is basically the same as Kia's other electric cars. Now, there's one problem that I have with this car, and it's a major problem that I think has to make you think twice about buying one. I'm going to say what I think that is at the end of the video so that people don't get angry now. You can wait to get angry at me at the end of the video. For those of you who love Kia and Hyundai anyway. Now, what else do we know about it? Well, the cheapest model of this vehicle uses a motor that's fairly low on power compared to some of its rivals. It's got 215 horsepower, which is 160 kilowatt. And it's got a fair bit of torque though, 310 newton meters of torque, which is 229 pound-feet. However, I think you might be thinking to yourself, that rings a bell. Hang on a minute. Could that be the same power specifications and exactly the same torque, identical to BYD's Atto 3 and other BYD cars? Well, you'd be right. I believe it actually uses a BYD motor. Now, why do I believe that? Well, because it uses a BYD Blade battery as well. In fact, I believe much of the car is made by BYD. Anyhow, we don't know that for sure, but we do know it's using a lithium iron phosphate Blade battery from BYD. And that means it actually weighs a surprisingly, impressive number, I think, for a car this size. It's 1,870 kilos. Well, that's what the Chinese government says anyway. That's a really good weight for a car not called Tesla. It's pretty good. I mean, there's plenty of cars much smaller than this that weigh considerably more than that. Have a look at Volkswagen's EVs. ID3, for example, is 150 kilos heavier, much, much, much smaller. So I think the weight's really, really good. Now, here's the thing. That battery pack, I believe, is only going to be for the China spec model, unfortunately. And this is where I have an issue. Even though there's a lot of electric cars now using LG Chem batteries, it's believed the non-Chinese version will use LG Chem or LG Energy Solutions batteries, meaning nickel, manganese, cobalt battery pack from LG. They're not bad. In fact, their energy density is pretty good range you can get out of the cars. Now, you can't charge them to 100%. You don't want to do that anyway. The companies don't recommend you don't do that. The Blade battery here in this model for the China, you can charge it to 100%. So the range, whatever the range ends up being for that car, I'm going to estimate it'll be around 400 kilometers. That's your real world range. Probably pretty close. That's around about your real world range because you can charge them to 100%. But the overseas model, you're going to hear a range and you figure and you're going to think, oh, that's not bad. It might be 450 kilometers. But if you're only meant to charge it to 80 or 90%, then the real world range will be less than the advertised figure. The other issue that I have is it's still a risk, in my opinion, to buy an EV using a ternary battery from LG Energy Solutions. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why is the Viking always picking on LG Energy Solutions? Now, keep in mind, right, SK Innovation, they make lithium ternary batteries. BYD make lithium ternary batteries. CATL make them. In fact, there's about 30 manufacturers worldwide that are pretty big companies that make lithium ternary batteries. But for some strange coincidental reason, there has been an incredible number of problems, recalls, issues, Chevy Bolt, Bolt EUV, Volkswagen cars, Hyundai cars using batteries from LG Chem. What about the 14,000 batteries recalled in Australia that were made by LG Chem because they were burning down people's houses? And I'm not exaggerating on that. That was really happening. That was a real thing. And it went on for years until LG Chem was forced to recall 14,000 batteries in Australia. Now, if you want to take the risk of buying a car with that battery type, it may be fine, but it is unquestionably still a risk. Now, I mentioned that there is a model with rear-wheel drive. There should be a model with all-wheel drive as well. We just don't know the specifications of that particular model yet. We're going to find out the international global specs, exactly what they are, the power specifications, some extra details on the 25th of August. So what's that? About a week away. When we do, I'll release another video and I'll give you everything you need to know to help you decide whether or not you should actually buy one of these or a Tesla Model Y. Now, the thing to keep in mind is this will come out probably for sale in most markets within about the next 6 months. So will the new Tesla Model Y, which it will definitely compete against. The new Y, though, will have quite a few changes versus the model of today. One, it'll likely be a bit lighter than this car. It will definitely use LMFP or M3P batteries in the base model specification. It'll be more efficient. It'll have a few advantages. It'll have a few changes. If you want to know what those changes are, I'll put a link in the description below to my video, my live video that I just did within the last couple of days, telling you all the different changes coming to the Model 3, which also apply to the new Model Y. Now, we can't really know for sure whether or not you should buy this or a Model Y until we find out the exact details and specifications of this and the prices as well. So I'll do a direct comparison when we find out that information. At this point in time, though, I'll just tell you what I'm personally doing. I'm waiting for the new version, the Juniper version of the Model Y. When that's out, pretty likely you'll see me placing an order. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.